Okay. All right, good evening. I'm going to call to order meeting number 1864 of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. We are live in the John Daly room of the East Windsor Town Hall, as well as on the Zoom platform. We have a quorum. We have 4 regular members present. Do we have any added agenda items?
Just the one correspondence.
Okay. There was a legal notice. The East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Details regarding how to attend will be published on the commission's agenda and will be made available on the town's website. It's PZ 2023-31. The applicant owner is Pedro Vega, is requesting a special use permit for a lot split and creation of a rear lot at 257 South Water Street, map 71, block 5, lot 34. In zone R3 and A2. Full copy of the application is available on the Planning and Zoning Commission's website, or the town webpage of the town's website. All interested persons may attend this meeting and provide verbal or written comments regarding this application. This was published in the Journal Enquirer on December 1st, 2023, and again on December 8th, 2023. We are at the public participation portion of our meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on to approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our regular meeting 1863. That was on Tuesday, November 28th. Does anyone have any corrections or alterations?
I have, oh,
Okay.
on page 15, line 600,
Line 600.
under condition number 3, it has working in parentheses. I don't think that was, the word working was part of the motion.
Okay, so we'll scrape the
That's
word
what I
working.
think, but somebody may recall differently.
Okay.
But that's, and then, page 24. Line 997. This is something Mike D'Amato said. We clarified that the commission isn't required to exceed the scope of a project. I think it should be allowed.
We were talking about the grocery store.
We're going to replace the word required with allowed.
That's what I think he said. It doesn't, it contradicts what it says. Oh, I have.
Anyone else? Okay. If we have no other corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of regular meeting 1863, which was held Tuesday, November 28th, 2023, with 2 revisions to the minutes as presented.
There's a motion on the table to, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you want
Go
me to
ahead.
state them?
Yeah, go ahead.
On line 600, delete the word working, and on line 997, replace the word required with allowed.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain. Abstain. Aye.
It was a long meeting and Peg did a very nice job capturing it all.
Okay. There is no new receipt of applications. There's nothing to discuss on the performance bonds and permit extensions of road acceptance. There is no continued public hearings. So we'll move on to our new public hearing. PZ 2023-31, 257 South Water Street, requesting a special use permit for a lot split and creation of a rear lot located on map 71, block 5, lot 34, in the R3 and A2 zone. The applicant owner is Pedro Vega. Who's here to speak on their behalf?
Good evening, JR3 Russo Associates here representing the owner and applicant, Pedro Vega. Pedro was away at work, is not available to come to the meeting tonight, although he is online and available to answer any questions that you might have. This is an application for a special permit for a rear lot located on South Water Street, the westerly side of South Water. The address 257 and 255 South Water Street. And I think Pedro was informally before you not too long ago to talk about this. It was a project that actually started, I think, back in 2006, and I'm sure you've all read Ruth's memo, which does a pretty good job of kind of capturing the history of what's going on here since 2006. Basically, what we have is a lot of, I think it's about 2.6 acres in total, frontage on South Water. We've got R3 residential to the south, which is vacant. It's currently agricultural use. To the north or northwest of the parcel is R3 residential developed in the form of 2 single family homes. That was a subdivision that you approved, I'm going to say 8 or 10 years ago. Those 2 houses were built and sold. There was property that was owned by the farming family. I think Noreen and her husband owned it at the time it was subdivided. 2 lots were created and sold out, and those 2 houses are just to the north of this. Across the street to the east is some commercially zoned property, and we have here a driveway that goes into the Silverman Group property that's now occupied. I think it's maybe Webster right there that's in there. I could be wrong, I don't think exactly, but it's a distribution center for building material essentially. Perfect. So here up in the front, we have the front lot, existing house and an outbuilding. The house is, I don't know, late 1700s, early 1800s. It's very old, probably in the original farmhouse or the farm that was located on this property many, many years back. And it still sits here. Pedro and his family currently live in that house and have been living there since he bought the property back in 2005 or 2006, somewhere thereabouts, when we started construction on the new home. To the back here is the new house that's located here, not yet completed. He is now ready to go back to work, finish the house, and hopes to move he and his wife into this house. I think since all this has happened, his mother is now joined. She's living with them. I believe she lives up here in the front with them, and I think the plan is that she would like to continue to live there. And Pedro and his wife and family will move into the rear house, hopefully once it's completed, if this is approved. So in going through your rear lot regulations, as stated here in this memo, we're in the R3 zone until we get back here, where we get into the A2 zone, or what I call the conservation zone, which is the area that's closer to the river. Basically, the zone line here is follows pretty much close to where the sanitary sewer line, the trunk line, finds its way down to the sewer plant, and then we're out to the Connecticut River located here to the back. So the front lot is located up here. The minimum buildable lot area is 30,000 square feet. We're providing just over that at 30,043 square feet. We've got 209, just over 209 feet of frontage on South Water Street. So we meet the regulation in terms of the minimum criteria for lot size and frontage and so forth. The rear lot back line would start here, go all the way back to the river. And based on your regulations, it's required to have double the lot area as well as the minimum buildable area and a 30-foot access to get to it from South Water Street. So we've provided a 30-foot access that's located here in this crosshatched area. This is an access area that'll be in favor of this lot. They will not own it in fee. There is a caveat in the regulation that says if you have available frontage in excess of the required 30 feet, that it could be an access easement or an access right of way. And that's what this is, because we've got over 200 feet of frontage here, and the requirement in the R3 zone is only 150 feet. Actually, maybe it's even less than that. It's 125 feet, I believe. So we have excess frontage, so it's an access easement or right of way. The driveway is actually going to be located over here on the northwest corner. This is the current driveway that's been used for the construction of the house. We're providing another access easement over here in favor of this house. This meets your requirements in terms of 12 feet, 18-foot clear, plantings on both sides, north side and south side, to screen any of the neighbors. And it's 24 feet total in width from property line to the south, and that comes in over here. Utilities for the back lot are already installed. They go right along the property line here. There's electric and water. Sanitary sewer comes up from the back, ties into the house here. That's already in and connected. And they've also provided a sanitary sewer lateral for the front house, and that comes up to this point where it's capped. And we're also extending the sewer easement to provide access to the sewer for the front lot should it ever be needed. It's currently on a septic system. But if they ever need the sewer is available, and we're providing an easement to allow that to be tied in at some future point in time. The front house is on city water that is tied in. As I said, it's on the septic system. It's located somewhere over in this area. Exact location isn't known. There's no records on it. The house is very old. But appears to function well. So in terms of the back lot, again, the required buildable area based on the R3 zone is 30,000 square feet. On this particular lot, we've got a little over 40,000 in buildable. The required lot area is double the lot area for the zone, which is 60,000. And we've got 80. I should have my other glasses on. 83,000 and some change in total lot area. So we're roughly about 2 acres in total size, just under 2 acres in total size. So we meet the regulation in terms of the criteria there for the rear lot. Again, plantings shown north side, south side of the driveway, and up here along the dividing property line between the two lots. We've got evergreens here. These are spruce, and these are arborvitaes that are shown here. And as I said earlier, all the utilities are in. Really no construction involved in this other than a gravel driveway from here up to the back house, which is somewhat there already that they had used for construction, but it's got to be widened to a minimum 12 foot for the emergency vehicles with the 3 feet either side. So there is a little bit of work to do there. But other than that, it's basically just construction work on the house itself. There's really no site work here. Everything's already built. So that's a basic overview. And as I said, I think Ruth's memo does a pretty good job of describing what's happened here over the years and the history of this. So if anybody has any questions, I could answer them, or Pedro is online as well, could probably answer any questions that you might have.
I got nothing, pretty straightforward.
I have a question for the staff. When you create a rear lot, I recognize this is they staying in the family. But should it not stay in the family? And you have the old house and the new house, does it trigger, open space? If it's one lot. They can pay the lot.
I can answer that.
Oh, okay,
There's no open space requirement. It's not a subdivision. It's just. a square.
okay.
Otherwise, yes, it would.
Nelson?
That's it.
Nope, I'm good.
I do have kind of on the similar thought, so the driveway access is gonna be through an easement, not. The property line is not gonna be there, so
That's correct.
that's gonna be deeded into the front property, so again, if they were to be
It'll
sold
be
off.
deeded across the front property in favor of the rear piece. So yes, there will be a deed created for the access, and there also will be an easement or a deed created for the sewer hookup for future sewer for the house. in the
As,
front.
as well as the 30-foot.
Correct. Yep, those will all be on the land records.
Okay. And, just curious, the screening, since it's not on the property of the rear lot, who's responsible to maintain it? The front lots were responsible to maintain the screening?
I would say it would be the rear lot that's responsible for maintaining the screening because it's a requirement of that particular lot to, the creation of that lot to provide the screening. And maybe a notation to clarify that plan might be a good one to put on there.
Okay.
That's a good catch.
That was pretty much, I mean, I see that the front, I guess that part of the garage kind of makes it non-conforming with a 3-foot 4-inch.
Both of the
Offset.
buildings up front, being at their age, predate all the zoning requirements, so, you know, they're both too close to the road. One of them's too close to the sideline.
Yep.
And so there's basically grandfathered existing nonconformities that predate the zoning requirements.
They were there before the road.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Property.
yeah.
Cart path,
Of course,
property
they'll
at the
need-
time it was built.
And you do picked out the paved apron coming off the gravel.
Yeah, paved aprons required.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all I had. Michael, with any of any questions?
I just wanted to make note that the barn in the back lot would need to be permitted separately,
Future bond.
Future, yeah.
and that this outbuilding in the front lot cannot be used as a dwelling.
With, yeah, it's in your, I think it's in your memo, it says cannot be used as a dwelling unless approval is acquired. I think it was
Yes.
note 13 on the last page.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on this application? That's pretty straightforward. Most of the work has already been completed. Unless you got, anybody else have any comments, question?
No, sir.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on application PZ 2023-31 for a special use permit for a rear lot.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, public hearing is closed. Yeah. Do we have all the information we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Do we need any, for the maintaining the trees note? Just, is there a generic something that covers that? Or do you need something added to the motion?
We want to add a motion number 14.
We can put it in as something.
14 will be simple as the rear lot will assume responsibility for maintaining
Maintaining.
screening
Yep.
and drive access. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this application.
I'll make a motion to approve application PZ 2023-31 for a special use permit for a rear lot at 257 South Water Street. The owner applicant is Pedro Vega. The reference plan findings and 13 of the 14 conditions are all in a December 5th memo written by Ruth Ann Calabrese. And we are adding a condition 14 that will state the rear lot is responsible for maintaining screening of the driveway access.
There's a motion on the table to approve the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, the application is approved.
Thank you.
Welcome. Of course.
We have no old business. Under new business, we have PZ 2023-27, 52 Main Street modification of approved site plan for parking spots located at 52 Main Street, map 61, block 5, lot 41, in the TZ5 zone. Our understanding is the applicant is not able to attend, so.
He's requested an extension.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to extend this application.
I'll make a motion to extend the decision deadline for PZ 2023-27 for 52 South Main Street. Its request for site plan modification to parking for an existing business. The owner applicant is Yanal Leader for Black Iris LLC / Toro Auto to January 9th, 2024.
There's an application to extend the review process. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It has been postponed. No other business. Correspondence. Want
When we do the 824.
Okay, we'll do that first. Okay. So we have an 824 referral for vacant property at Morris Road, lot 17-67-009.
So we got a request for the referral from the Board of Selectmen. The adjacent property owner, Lorraine Ross, has expressed an interest in owning the property so that she could maintain it. It's an open lot, and when trees fall and become unsightly for her, she'd like to be able to go in there and clean up. She made that request to the Board of Selectmen, and they are asking for the commission's feedback.
In your packets, there's a aerial view showing the lot in question is in blue. The butter to the left is the applicant, requesting the referral. This was open space that was deeded to the town along with the lot on the opposite side of Stepping Stone Drive. those two pieces of property were to satisfy the open space requirements for that subdivision.
That's the 1.12 acre parcel. It has drainage easements in favor of the town. It is satisfying the open space requirements, and so if it gets transferred over, it should be be restricted or to not be developed.
That's my first question was gonna be.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do the, building lot,
Right, 10 years from now, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna remember. An item that Mike brought up was the fee in lieu of open space or open space, and so now if this property gets deeded over to a private, you know, the abutter, should there be what would have been a fee in lieu of open space put into the town open space account?
Yeah, the discussion that I had with Ruth Ann is, we've talked about this before, is that the town has a patchwork of all these tiny little open space lots that were carved out of subdivisions that are not congruous, have no real intrinsic value to the town, they're more of a maintenance issue. So Ruth Ann actually put a calculation together of all the properties that are under the
I don't
town.
have a tally, but we have a whole portfolio of parcels throughout the town. We've split them up by 5 categories really, but they're have a total acreage with 729 acres.
So how much would the fee in lieu of open space have been had the stepping stone development paid the fee instead of donated the land?
We don't have the ability to calculate that right now.
10% of fair market value is what the number is, or $2,000 per lot.
And there's however many lots in on stepping stone.
that's probably 10 or 12.
Is she planning to acquire the parcel or combine the parcel? You know, if she's going to simply obtain ownership, but keep it as a separate parcel in. With the conservation easement perpetuity, then. Goes from being, open space owned by the town to open space owned by another person.
Right, well, that's what we're discussing, that maybe it couldn't be called open space anymore because it's not public access anymore.
And
I don't know how-
drainage.
I don't know how the subdivision regs define open space and if it needs to be public access or if it can be private or managed. But
Yes, it could be, you could look at it as if for wildlife,
Yeah,
open space
I mean,
is open space,
could
you
be.
know?
non-developable.
providing what is it? Continuous
Like a corridor.
canopy coverage for wildlife and.
Yeah, but it was a golf course, so I mean, it is kind of,
It's not providing
Open
public
space,
access
that's-
now. You
I think
know,
it's significant, like drainage.
hmm.
Why would the original developer go that big of a parcel in the first place? They could have been a building lot. It's too small.
Well, if it's receiving
Oh, is it? Well,
stormwater, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is received.
So, yeah, if it's a stormwater,
that was the worst piece on the property was out.
Downgrade into
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
Pushed it all there. Got this problem. Called it down.
if there's a difference between
Oh,
private,
what?
if the open space is required to be deeded to the town. Which not every subdivision, that's how it is. Some of it's owned by the association or.
See, when was this updated? Well, in 2012, when was this subdivision put in? Probably before the update to it, because in 7.4, it talks about open space shall be contiguous to other open spaces wherever possible, be of sufficient size and make a meaningful contribution to the open space network. So under this reg, we wouldn't have accepted this currently.
today.
as
But
open
it's-
space now.
It's legacy of the past.
Right. Because that's exactly what we're trying to eliminate is all these patchwork.
Right. And I
Basically,
feel for this abutter with trees falling on their property from non-maintained use. They can't solve the problem. They can't own the land.
I just, why I brought this up was I thought this would be a good starting point to kind of set a precedence to dealing with all the rest of the
No,
open
it's
space
a very,
properties.
it's a very good question. Should there be a fee? And what should the fee be?
Well, not only that too, is I think we should also have stipulations that it's only available to abutters. That somebody can't just come around
No, I
and acquire
totally
all
agree.
these pieces of
Yeah.
property.
I was gonna say, does this mean every open space is available for sale in this
At
town?
10%, yeah,
At 10%, because people are gonna start lining up.
right.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's the whole part of it is that it's gonna be deed restricted, that it's non-developable.
It's better be attached to your butter than anybody, obviously.
Right,
There's really no other abutter. Because
Yeah,
you-
well,
Sounded like that.
Just one,
they're
just
just,
the one.
that's
The golf course, I think.
well, this, the new development.
right, but
isn't
they're-
water also.
they're not really in a butter because there's open space. Well, yeah. you could just-
No, he's gonna butter, yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna.
And then the
right at the edge
question
of his
is-
driveway.
The other house on Stepping Stone, should they have? Should there be a process where all the abutters,
Or
Get
give it an
that.
opportunity.
yeah,
Well, that's kind of where my thought was that, that we actually have to maybe put together. A regulation or a process, like you say, on how to deal with all these open space, because. I think it'd be very beneficial for the town to be able to grow our open space fund and take the burden off, the Department of the
DPW.
DPW.
deal with the
On-
trees
on-
falling on other people's property. If there's no way they can maintain the forest.
That could be something that we have, Conservation Commission also weighing on
Right.
developing that process. What aspects they'd like to see.
So as far as this referral goes, how do we address this to go back? Because this has to go back to the board of selectmen. Um,
I think the most important part is that it remain open space. And Mike brought up an independent parcel, if not.
right, so is it gonna be deeded as open space, or is it just gonna be deed restricted as non-development? By eliminating the word open space, does that take out the other caveats of access or anything else?
I think the only formal category that you'll find would be. If it's undeveloped from us, like with the assessor, she's just calling it open space because it's not developed as something, but. I don't think there's a designation associated with it, so. As long as there was. I think that the easiest thing would be to keep it as a separate parcel. Absolutely. With the. All necessary restrictions or easements, et cetera, so that it couldn't be developed and. I don't know what the subdivision, if it's receiving. Drainage, then. What, right now, if the town had an issue with the road, they would go and deal with it because it would be their parcel, so I think you just need to make sure that. Those easements and all that were in place.
Do we also need to have some kind of language that it cannot be sold separate of the abutting property?
Should the butter all know about it?
I mean, if it's in,
Yeah, there is.
There is.
Oh,
That little sliver.
Not a butter there.
And there's the golf course.
really just not.
And when you get to the policy of what is open space, if somebody were to acquire these little parcels, can they clear cut the forest and make it a
Right.
lawn?
That'd be a very little hand.
But how do you,
Is that
how do you
open space?
regulate
But
that?
the park.
She can say that the trees are falling, so she needs to take the trees
Oh,
out.
I
So
get it.
How
I
do
get
you,
it. Right. But in
regulate
general,
that?
you know,
can't tell her what you can and can't do. The reason if she says a tree's falling,
oh, I totally get that, but can you like extend your lawn into, is that open space or?
sure, I don't think she can. Giving her the ability. She'll have to guess drainage.
I think you would have to have, easement language that would be in favor of the town, so that down the road. First right of refusal,
Go in and deal with the drainage.
well, just to prevent the parcel from being,
Abandoned.
or combined, right? Because there's no one in this room would ever see if a deed filed in the town clerk's office that just describes the two parcels and erases the line in the middle. So there would need to be some language associated with it that would prevent that from happening. I just don't know what conservation easement. I don't know. I've never.
Do we have any kind of time frame of when we have to return this referral?
Want to redraft.
If, yeah, I think, I mean, we've been kind of spitballing a bunch of ideas, if we could kind of put together a formal reply back to the board of selectmen, and these are our items that we'd like to see consideration on. And, that seems appropriate.
So here's what I take from this conversation is that we're gonna have a motion to approve the transfer, provided all the necessary easements and restrictions be maintained, and that the parcel is to remain intact and not combined
Correct.
with the adjacent parcels. Is there more we need in this particular
I think it
ask?
needs to, other
The
people
other
need to
stuff,
know about
the
it.
others, like very process oriented and
Well,
evaluation oriented.
Like they said, the abutters, all the abutters should know that this parcel was going to be.
And they all need to be given the opportunity.
Okay,
I mean, this guy doesn't know, if that guy doesn't know, then you got a problem.
yeah, I'm not sure if they have that process when
Notice.
they
of
to do
others.
it in the first place, but
There's language that dictates when modification of a subdivision is required. And a lot of times those descriptions include amendments to common elements. Wrestling with if the ownership of what was deed restricted open space qualifies as something that would require a modification,
I can research that.
which would then be potentially like at that point, and that's where you talk about re-subdivision public hearing, because if you're modifying a common element, the neighborhood wants to know rather than just the one person.
Right, and we were talking to somebody else about a different parcel that was at a homeowners association and an open space. Held by the homeowners association, that would have just made their density, impact them.
I think that these guys could get away with including in their recommendation that the Board of Selectmen not consider moving forward until we can confirm no nonconformity or, no, and that way we don't have all the answers at some point. There may be things that take longer, I don't know, but
So
not one I've ever dealt with before.
And then how do we also address the fee and law?
I don't think it's on the table, because you're reviewing an 824, right? So you're saying, you think this is a good idea, or we're not so sure. And that process requires a supermajority or not, Board of Selectmen. If that process and those decisions result in the creation of a violation or a violation of the approval, that's like a separate thing, and that may be why they don't move forward. But I don't think you could sort of include in your recommendation that they provide a fee or, to me, that's a separate issue of whether or not this is even doable or if it would violate the subdivision approval. if that's the case, I don't think the board of selectmen can move forward until that's rectified, and maybe the solution is payment of the fee.
Gotcha.
Complicated.
Yes, it
It's
is.
interesting though. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm coming around to the rationale behind if it's not an appropriate. If it's not an appropriate parcel and would not have necessarily been accepted by the commission,
Originally, as an open space.
then can we just trade the fee in lieu of? But
Right.
then how do you not create that incentive moving forward unless you have some very set?
We did that over there, so can't do it again.
Well, again, because I think whatever we do here can then later be used as precedents if we want to try to do something with
Handle the other ones.
the other ones,
Yeah.
correct?
Okay. Do we need a motion? At all tonight? Or just-
We did.
But we're not,
Table it to the next meeting.
yeah, we're just,
Okay.
we're just gonna take it because we're not making any referral with this.
I wasn't sure if we wanted to do an interim report back. I can do that.
Mine was-
Yeah, I can do that.
yeah. The other correspondence we have is,
Shoot, can I make a comment? On that last comment.
it's not a public hearing on this. We have a letter from the North Central District Health Department that was just, we just got a copy of it this evening.
Oh, that's what that-
Go ahead and review that with me.
Sure. This came in, this evening. And it is from, Westford Laurel. He's a registered sanitarian with the North Central District Health Department. And it's, a letter pertaining to we haven't seen it in our office, but a proposed subdivision on East Road and Reservoir Avenue. And the concerns regarding the proposal for private drinking water wells. And so Wes talks about access to public water within 200 feet. Being a trigger for, requiring to be hooked up, and he cautions about concerns and they're based on known contaminated private wells in the area and the hardness of the water and requiring treatment. And so that he's advising, kind of noting this with the commission. Now, we have not seen this subdivision.
So this
So
This isn't a subdivision that this.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was
it is a,
at that corner where,
no, it's a plan review and it doesn't exist.
okay,
So,
and I thought with the subdivision at that corner, we had required public water. The one that we did approve.
You're talking Depot Street.
Depot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is East Road,
yeah,
okay,
so this one doesn't exist as of yet.
okay,
But I think that's, where Wes is coming from.
So it's kind of a preemptive,
Yeah,
just to say that
he's,
if you review this, this is
this
something that
is
should
his
be
letter that's
considered.
actually notifying the property owners of this position and copying the PCC on
okay, I get it.
We just haven't seen it.
that's the first time that's ever happened. Okay, more information is good.
No,
Okay. Under our business meeting, we have 297 North Road enforcement.
that him. It's the LAP of record who's
Okay,
going to present.
Yeah, I thought the window, so I agree with you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring it.
You want me to get it?
Jason, I don't know.
It's very low.
Sure, man. Either lower.
Good evening. I'm Scott Atkin. I'm a licensed environmental professional with Hartman and Judas out of Glastonbury. And Ruth Ann asked me to come in. We've been providing information over the course of the last month or so regarding the investigation we did into the soils out at 297 North Road, and to sort of summarize the history and what we've done and what our findings were. So you probably remember that this is originally a special use or special permit application, not application, was renewed in 2019 for 3 years, allow them to place fill materials that meet certain quality characteristics on the site. And then in 2022, after a visit from the town, realized that they were placing fill outside of the permitted limits to facilitate the construction of an access road. And so there was an overfill at the top of the slope out and then down the slope. And that cease and desist was issued in September of 22. J.R. Russo and Associates did a survey of the area back in August of 22, which did show that the filling was outside the horizontal limits in some areas. It was 16 feet deep. Between us, we did a rough estimate, about 20 to 25,000 cubic yards of overfill in that area. Initially, what we did was we reached out to, or North Road Materials reached out to us, provided data that they had received from the MDC and their consultant. Most of the material in this area came from a variety of MDC projects. Overall, for the soil, there was 28 sets of data that had been submitted and that we went through last fall. It was tested for potential contaminants, including hydrocarbons, metals, cyanides, volatile organics, semi-volatiles, PCBs. That data and the tonnage information that came along with it represented about 20,000 tons worth of soil that was brought in from MDC projects. Their consultant had stated that the soil was not from environmental remediation projects. A bunch of it was from the tunnels, some of it was from utility line work. And they characterized each group of those samples as clean. We went through it, compared the data to the remediation standards, and concurred that based on the data we had reviewed, that it looked okay. J.R. Russo updated their topo. Basically, we looked at that area that was overfilled out to where it was still flattish, that there was about 22,000 yards of fill there, and then down the overfill on the slope was about 7,500 cubic yards. And then, like I said, with a little better mapping, we figured that the depth of fills ranged from 3 feet down near the bottom to in some places as much as 26. So this summer, we went out with the intent of characterizing the samples or the soil that was out there. So in addition to the review of the information North Road Materials had received when the materials and the soils came in, we did a total of 14 test pits out there. We looked at the depths at each of the 14. Well, we started off with 12 and added 2 later. We looked at the depths. We tried to get full depth, collect composite samples, and then composite them and send them to the laboratory for analysis. We try to make it roughly proportional to, that 22,000 yards in the flatter area. So we collected 10 samples out of there and 4 samples on the side slopes. We tested for contaminants that we thought could potentially be present, including petroleum hydrocarbons. We ran metals again, but we ran in 2 different test types. One the total and one the amount that the leachable metals. Polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are non-volatile compounds that you find like in diesel fuel for oils, VOCs that you'd find in gasoline or solvents, and PCBs. While the crew was out there doing the work, on one of the days, there was a problem with the hydraulic line. So there was actually a spill of some hydraulic oil during this investigation, which is important when we get to the results. All the data was compared to remediation standards. So we looked at the direct exposure criteria applicable to industrial and commercial sites. That's the criteria, direct exposure criteria, is the one where you're primarily concerned about people being exposed. So what are the health impacts or potential health impacts? We also looked at the pollutant mobility criteria for soils in a GA area. And that has more to do with the soils are in the ground, and if they leach out and could potentially get into the groundwater, what are those potential impacts on the environment? So in our initial 12 locations, everything was below those standards that I just talked about, except at 2 spots. We had test pit number 6, top of the hill, had some lead in it. The total lead numbers were below the direct exposure health criteria, but the amount that leached off was above what you'd want to see in the GA area. And then down at the bottom of the hill, near where the hydraulic line had leaked, we found some polyaromatic hydrocarbons or PAHs. And those are the compounds that I said you typically find in an oil or petroleum release. So we went back out in September with the intention of excavating soil in those 2 areas. So we dug down about 12 feet in each of the areas and took out some soil from each area. And then we collected samples from the bottom of the sidewall of those excavations. The sample near the top, test pit 6, that had the leachable lead in it. The concentrations were then below the pollution mobility criteria. But the one down at the bottom, concentrations were still a little high. So we they went back out again, did a second round of excavation. All in all, we're looking at like 70 to 80 cubic yards of soil were pulled out of the ground, put on plastic, covered with plastic, until those results from the bottoms and the sidewalls came back clean. Once that had happened, we took a sample, a couple samples from the soils that had been excavated to characterize it so we can make sure it gets managed properly. Based on that testing, we determined that those soils were non-hazardous. They didn't meet the record definition of hazardous waste. And that the numbers we were seeing were consistent with what can be accepted at the Manchester landfill to reuse that as daily or weekly covered material up on top of the landfill. And that was the plan that we developed for how to properly manage these materials. Once we had that characterization data, samples were actually transported to Red Technologies in Portland. They have a facility that can accept non-hazardous contaminated soils. It's a total of 85, we'll call it 86 tons. The soil were transported down there. And what Red does is they'll screen it to get out the rocks. They'll store it in bins with other similar materials until such time as it can be scheduled for taking it to Manchester, based on their needs for covered soil. And that's what happened to the soils that were excavated. So just to sort of wrap it all up, initially we looked at the data that was provided for the soils that went in, and it seemed like it met the remediation standards. We investigated the whole filling area, overfill area. We found those 2 hot spots, dug them out. It was iterative for one of them. The soils that remained in the ground are below the remediation standard criteria for GA area and for industrial commercial sites. And the soils that were dug out were determined to be non-hazardous and or can be reused or have been reused at the Manchester landfill. So, that's sort of all the history of what happened and what the investigation was. These soils are placed on a pretty steep slope there on the north side of the facility. All the testing showed that it was non-hazardous and within the remediation standards. Frankly, I think that excavation or removal of all the soils would be, has the potential to cause a bigger environmental problems with regards to slope stabilization and just getting the materials in and out, protecting the down gradient environment. So North Road Materials would, seeking your permission basically to leave those materials in place and to stabilize the slopes.
So it's been a little over a year. The last letter from Scott was December 1st. And I think since December 1st, last year, there's been pretty consistent communication with the property owner, with the folks working out there, Scott. There had been some delays with the equipment that was down and kind of a change, trouble finding a drill rig, so they went and test pits but they laid out the grid and they did the sampling and handled the materials that needed to be transported off site. And I do have the transfer records, the manifest, the weight slips for the material that Scott talked about, the 80 tons that went to Redton. To have that paperwork. So since it started with the commission and an application and just that discovery, I thought it made sense to come back and see how the commissioners how they feel about closing this out. If you think anything else should be done.
I'm okay, they pulled out the hot spots and pull the rest of it out would be just a big mess. I agree. Pull out the hot spots and leave it alone.
Is there a grading plan put together for the stabilization?
I think that the as-built plan that was submitted as part of this back in November pretty much covers the proposed grading.
For the current rate.
Yes,
Because you said that you still had stabilization to complete. As it sits right now, do we still have stabilization that needs to occur?
I'd like to just confirm that the grass is in and growing.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
If I recollect correctly, this bill was taken in beyond what was allowable.
Right.
How do we assure that doesn't happen again and continue to happen?
Well, at this point, there's no active permit.
The permit expired, so
The
now
permit's
they're just
expired.
looking to satisfy the requirements of the cease and desist and the remediation portion of it.
Okay, that's all we're talking about. We're
Correct.
not talking
Not
about.
reestablishing a fill, anything like that.
Right
Okay.
now, the material gets kind of held and processed and shipped, right? That's,
Oh,
yeah.
The question at hand is, have they satisfied the remediation stabilization?
I can set up a site visit. They'll take a look.
Have anything, David?
I'm kind of wondering why the grouping of samples were concentrated to certain areas, but I noticed there's no extra sampling around TP2. There's quite a large area of no sampling around that area, and I find it interesting that conveniently that area had a hydraulic spill from an equipment, when most of these equipments are supposed to have spill kits when you're using them to prevent this.
Yeah, so I mentioned that originally we did 12 test pits. When we went back after we got the hot at number 2,
Yep.
we did end up doing another test pit in that area as well as.
I just don't see it marked, so I
Yeah.
have, you know.
Yeah,
hotspot
and it's
two in there.
discussed in the text. The other thing is, that being at the bottom of the slope, the amount of fill, even though it's a good sized area, if you're looking at it in plan view, the amount of fill there versus the amount of fill further uphill, just because it has the depth, is really, like I said, we tried to keep it proportional when we laid out our grid. So that's
So
really,
it's like a third of the amount of fill in that green hash area as compared to the yellow.
Fill that he can prove was there, or fill that we think was there,
Based on the contours,
based on the contours and the density of the packing of it,
yes.
but we don't really know.
so the previous, well. The discovery came from the as-built with the application, right? So what were the contours before? What are they now? That's not, so like, even myself doing the old fashioned integral right, across, I could come up with a number. Mine
It says more
I didn't
was up
do
in
the
the-
downslope portion, but it's just a volume.
Okay,
It's kind of like looking at a cross section of,
okay,
so there's. 2/3 more fill on that in the yellow, so. 2/3 of the total.
but what was to stop him from digging out of the green area and replacing it with polluted dirt? And maintaining that height again? There's been no mention of the truck that came in from New Haven Harbor that had
Dredge.
the
material.
dredged
So
sludge material.
That
Nobody's even
material
talked
was,
about this.
that was sampled
Okay,
and it was disposed of. And when it was sampled, I don't think it tripped anything.
Right.
What was there had been aged, so I think actually it was pesticides that was in the sampling.
I believe so. I'd have to look it up
Yeah,
to
that's
confirm,
fine.
but. That information was. Again, we sampled and we had looked at the data that came in and did some additional sampling last October, November. When I was here. Right before I was here.
I just want to make sure what we're covering
So-
up isn't somehow kicking the
So-
can down the road, and making it worse.
The wet loads that came out of the harbor that got stored on site, we didn't know whether that went down the hill or not. That was why the sampling grid was established and why the sampling took place, to say, what's down the hill? And so we've got that answer. And it from the sampling data, it says that it meets the industrial commercial cleanup level.
Okay,
And are
So-
we comfortable it's not, if it meets a industrial cleanup level, but we have the Scantic River back there,
Well, and
is
that's,
industrial good enough, or is it going to leach into the Scantic? River?
well, the higher standard is that pollutant mobility, all right,
Right,
yeah.
I compared them to both the direct exposure, which is the industrial number, and that GA pollutant mobility criteria. So that's an indication, or use it as an indication of how much might leach off of this if it's out in the environment. And get into the groundwater and then, potentially go to the wetlands or the Scantic River. And so. That was actually the criteria that we had the hotspots on for the lead and the PAHs, was that pollutant mobility criteria. And that's why we did the excavation and pulled the material out that was over. And then all the other samples were below that standard for every parameter.
So we're not concerned about pollutants leaching into the groundwater and the Scantic.
Correct.
It's clean enough for that.
It meets criteria for a GA area, so, yeah, which is an area you could
Drink
drink a well
water.
in, right? Exactly.
Do you need anything from this commission as far as, an approval or guidance or anything like that? Or-
I think a motion, if there were a motion that this could be closed once confirmation of statement. The bank is confirming. Once we confirm.
You feel comfortable and you know what you're looking for?
I think so.
She's written already.
Okay.
I'm reading what Ruth Ann said.
Yeah.
You're ready, I'll entertain a motion on this.
Okay,
So the original, if it's helpful, the original cease and
cease and
desist,
desist, that's what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
but September seventh,
Oh, you asked.
Okay,
the last day.
so I'll make a motion to authorize staff to close the September 7th, 2022 cease and desist order for 297 North Road. Once the bank stabilization has been confirmed by staff.
Okay, if we have a motion to close the cease and desist order, we have a second?
Second.
Second again. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Okay, we now have our CEO report.
So Danielle has put together the report, we removed the blight related items
Okay.
as you had asked. So you have your coding stuff that came in and was enclosed in yellow. Since the last meeting. Some of those have to do with RVs. Like a mini suite, it's gonna multiple components. Item that came in, so a lot of those got closed up fairly quickly. The big Stein suite got underway.
Stop that.
That separately. So she's doing even better now. She has, I think she's at 68% closeout of all the violations that she. So, he's working on it. Doing a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tough ones are like the liquor stores or the pool halls that have fully signed windows and they can only, they have to have certain percentage that they can have covered, and so that kind of puts them in a pickle as to how they're gonna solve those problems. And some folks with their flags, they're kind of committed to their lives. They're hard to let go of. She actually went out and pulled some of the staked
Yeah,
advertising from in front of Calamar, because Calamar is still, they haven't gotten a CO yet, and they have a.
There's a whole wall with some.
Yeah, so. That I think was a big success, you can see the difference.
you want to keep them in business, but you don't want to bully them too much,
Right. And I think, particularly the car dealerships, they know her from the car suite and, that rapport is pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
As always, she's doing a very good job.
Yeah.
Hey. We have no need for an executive session. Does anyone on the commission have anything else they'd like to discuss?
What's that?
Nope. Okay, if not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:40.